صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. How is everyone today? Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي زدني علما اللهم فقهنا في الدين اللهم إني أسألك علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا ورزقا طيبا اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. Ameen. Okay. Lesson number 236. Surah Saad verses 1 to 26. Surah Saad is a Makki surah and it contains 88 verses, approximately 736 words, and approximately 3,067 letters. The primary lesson of this surah is submission to Allah and turning to Him. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Saad, Saad. Wal Qur'ani dhi dhikr, by the Qur'an containing reminder. This letter, Saad, is of the huruf muqatta'at, the disjointed letters. And these letters display the miraculous nature of the Qur'an. And the evidence of this is that these huruf are followed by a verse that mentions and exalts the Qur'an. Now, this particular surah is the first surah that we're studying which has just one letter from the huruf muqatta'at. Okay? And there are other surahs as well, like Surah Qaf, right? And also Surah Noon. Which surah is that? Yes, Surah Al-Qalam. Okay? So here we find Saad. Saad, meaning this particular letter from the huruf muqatta'at beginning this surah. And right after it, what is mentioned? The Qur'an. Wal Qur'ani dhi dhikr, by the Qur'an containing reminder. Waw is harf qasam. So here an oath is being taken. So harf qasam is waw. Maqsoom alayhi is what? Al-Qur'an. Good. And muqsim? Allah. What else is needed? The four components, right? Harf qasam is waw. Maqsoom alayhi is Al-Qur'an. Muqsim is Allah. There's one more component. Jawab qasam, right? Okay. That's not mentioned. The jawab qasam is not mentioned. So some scholars, they say it is mahdhuf, it is omitted. And what is that jawab qasam? By Allah, by the Qur'an, that is full of reminder. By the Qur'an that is full of reminder, the reality is not what the kuffar say, that the Qur'an is fabricated. Okay, so this is one interpretation. Some scholars, they say the jawab qasam, the point that is being emphasized here through this oath, is omitted, it's mahruf. And what is that jawab qasam? What is that point that is being emphasized? By the Qur'an that is full of reminder, The reality is not what the disbelievers say. And what do the disbelievers say? That the Qur'an is fabrication. Ibn al-Qayyim and some other scholars have said that this qasam, this particular qasam, doesn't need a jawab qasam. It's not needed. Because when you swear by an important thing, it is to highlight the importance of that thing. So by taking an oath by the Qur'an, the goal is not to prove something, but just to simply show the importance of the Qur'an. So, this group of scholars, they say that this qasam does not need a jawab qasam, because the jawab is understood from the qasam itself. Okay? And this is the case with some other aqsam as well in the Qur'an. Like in the beginning of Surah Al-Qiyamah, verses 1 to 3. لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه. I swear by the day of resurrection, and I swear by the reproaching soul, to the certainty of resurrection. Does man think that we will not assemble his bones? Also, the beginning of Surah Al-Fajr. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي حجر. By the dawn and by 10 nights, and by the even number and the odd, and by the night when it passes, is there not in all that an oath sufficient for one of perception? So the jawab qasam is not required because the qasam itself is meaningful. And the purpose of the qasam is to highlight the importance of the maqsoom alayh. So here in this case, the meaning, وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي الذِّكْرِ, the meaning here is, the Qur'an has dhikr, and you have been reminded. ذُكِرْتُمْ, you have been reminded many times through the Qur'an that there is only one ilah worthy of worship. And this description, the dhikr, this is a sifa, a description of the Qur'an. The means one that contains or possessor of. So the Qur'an bears dhikr. It contains reminder, it contains admonition, it contains mention, it also contains integrity, and also remembrance of Allah. Okay? Now, at the end of Surah As-Saffat, we learned that the people of Makkah, their statements were mentioned, the disbelievers, right? Their statements were quoted. So in verses 168 to 169 of Surah As-Saffat, we learn that Allah mentions, لَوْ أَنَّ عِنْدَنَا ذِكْرًا مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ لَكُنَّا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ الْمُخْلَصِينَ. This is one of the statements of the disbelieving people of Makkah. If we had a message from those of the former peoples, we would have been the chosen servants of Allah. So, Allah has sent a dhikr, وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي الذِّكْرِ, and now it's up to the people. They can choose whether they would accept this message, they can choose to do that, or they can choose to reject it. It's up to them. Now, how is this book, the Qur'an, ذِي الذِّكْرِ, full of reminder, advice, admonition? Number one, again, in the meaning of tadhkir, reminder. Number one, in the meaning of tadhkir. So it reminds people so that they can remember what is important and learn. What is it a reminder of? The reality that is within the fitrah, the innate disposition of people, which they keep forgetting from time to time. And also it is tadhkir, it's a reminder of their rights and their duties, their obligations. And as you continue to learn the Qur'an, you are able to identify what your rights are, but also what your responsibilities are, what your obligations are. Okay, so this is how this Qur'an, it is the dhikr. So dhikr in the meaning of tadhkir, reminder. Secondly, in the meaning of maw'idah, admonition. So it contains advice. through which people benefit in terms of their deen and also in worldly matters. It is easy for people to take lessons and advice from the Qur'an. So it is the most a'zam maw'idah. It is the greatest admonition. It's the best advice. Okay? And we learn in Surah Al-Qamar also that this statement is reiterated. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Then thirdly, this dhikr meaning dhikr in the sense of mention. Okay? So if you think about it, the Quran speaks about people. It mentions people of the past. It also makes mention of future events. Stories are contained within the Quran involving people. Legislative matters that impact people's lives are mentioned in the Quran. Commands that impact people's lives are mentioned in the Quran. These are all matters related to people. In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 10, we learn, لَقَدْ أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ كِتَابًا فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ. We have certainly sent down to you a book in which is your mention. Meaning matters related to you, related to people. And then fourthly, the dhikr in the meaning of sharaf, integrity, prestige. So it is a source of favorable mention and honor for those who choose to live by it, live by its teachings. It brings them integrity and prestige, not only in this worldly realm, but also in terms of the hereafter. In Surah Az-Zukhruf, we learn in verse number 44, وَإِنَّهُ لَذِكْرٌ لَكَ وَلِقَوْمِكَ. And indeed, it is a remembrance for you and your people. Meaning, if you abide by its teachings, it is a means of securing respect and integrity for you. Umar anhu, he said, we were of the most disgraced of people. And Allah granted us honor with this Islam. Now, whenever we seek honor in other than that which Allah honored us with, Allah shall disgrace us once again. And then, the dhikr can also mean dhikr of Allah, remembrance of Allah, through which one worships Allah. In the form of the recitation of this book. That's an act of worship. That is a form of remembrance of Allah. So yes, Allah is worshipped through the means of other adhkar as well. Like, even if you say, La ilaha illallah. That is a statement of worship. That is a type of worship, right? So whenever you recite anything from the Quran, that is remembrance of Allah, through which you're actually worshipping Him. وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي الذِّكْرُ. By the Quran containing reminder. So how is this description, the dhikr, understood? Number one, in the meaning of tadhkir, reminder. Reminder of what? The reality that is within the fitrah. And also? Rights and duties, obligations. What else? Maw'idah, admonition. It's the best advice. Relevant for all people at all times. Okay. Thirdly, mention. Meaning, it talks about people of the past and also mentions future events. It contains legislative matters, commands also related to people as individuals and also in terms of communal life. And then fourthly, sharaf, right? Integrity, prestige. If you abide by its teachings, it's a means of honoring you in this world and the next. A means of securing and preserving favorable mention. And also, fifth, the dhikr of Allah, which is a form of worship of Allah. بَلِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فِي عِزَّةٍ وَشِقَاقٍ. But those who disbelieve are in pride and dissension. Now this term bal, as we've learned earlier, is what is known as harf idburab. So it's a word that is intensifying what has been stated. But it can be used in two ways. One is in the meaning of ibtal, from batil, right? Ibtal means to negate the previous. Okay? This is one usage of the term bal. The usage of ibtal, nullifying or negating the previous statement. And also proving something that has been uttered or has been stated to be batil. Another usage of bal is of intiqal, to shift topics. It's like transitionary. So here, in this case, the second usage of shifting topics is more relevant. That's applicable here. Because obviously this bal is not negating the previous statement. Because what is the previous statement? An oath is being taken, and what is mentioned? Something very important, right? The maqsum alayh here is the Qur'an itself. So that's not going to be nullified. That's not going to be negated in any way. Okay, so bal here is in the meaning of shifting of topic. Balil ladina kafaru, but those who disbelieve from amongst the people of Makkah, fi izzah, are in pride, wa shiqaq, and dissension. The term izzah from the root letters? Ain zai zai, right? Azza, ya'izzu, izzan. It's used in the meaning of upper-handedness and also fame and pride. Opposite of dhul, dhal, lam, lam. Dhul is used for lowliness. So izzah is a state that protects a person from being humiliated or disrespected. And so the person who has izzah is not just someone who you can be like totally dismissive towards, he can be easily overpowered, right? The person with izzah is actually respected, is also followed. Now, when the term izzah is used to describe someone, it's used in two ways. Number one, in a positive meaning. So, in a favorable sense, describing someone who is actually respected, is not disregarded. This could be a person who's principled. And the second meaning for this term izzah, when it's connected to a person or a description of a person, is in the meaning of arrogance. And that's a negative connotation. So here, this term izzah takes on a negative connotation in this context. So sometimes madh, praise, is done through izzah. And then this is also when izzah is that of nasr, a means of strength for its possessor. So Allah is Rabbul Izzah. Also we learn فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. This is praise of Allah, right? But sometimes madhamma, disapproval, is done through the usage of the term izzah when it's connected to a person. Okay? And this is when a certain type of izzah, blameworthy kind, is actually preventing a person from accepting the truth. Okay, so for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 206, we learn, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُ اتَّقِ اللَّهَ أَخَذَتْهُ الْعِزَّةُ بِالْإِثْمِ. So this kind of izzah that is being referred to in verse 206 is the blameworthy kind, because it's understood here in the meaning of arrogance. That when a person is told, fear Allah, he's gripped by his own self-glory and he sticks to his sinful behavior. Okay? So between these two different types of izzah, there's a huge difference. So these people, alladina kafaru, who are being described, fi izzah, are in pride, which is preventing them from following the messenger. And the term shiqaq, from sheen, qaf, qaf, shaqqa, means to break apart. And the term shaq, it means to oppose someone, to keep animosity towards someone. So shiqaq is used in the meaning of discord, dissension, rift. And this term shiqaq is also used for a dispute in which the opposing parties hold on to a particular way or a particular opinion. And also a discord in which the disputing parties hold on to that which the other is opposing. So one party is holding on to something that the other person is claiming, the other party is claiming. And also the term shiq is used for a portion of something, half of something. Okay? So from hadith we learn, for example, ittaqun nara walau bi shiqqi tamrah. Save yourself from the hellfire even by giving half of a date in charity. So here, where these disbelievers are described, it is mentioned that they are in izzah, in pride, meaning in arrogance, that is preventing them from surrendering and accepting the messenger. Wa shiqaq, and dissension, meaning defiance. Enmity towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what he brought. They are aloof towards what it is that Allah has revealed. And so they are in one shiqq. And what Allah has revealed is in another shiqq. So the believers, those who accept Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who accept the Qur'an, are on one end of a spectrum, and these people on the other side of the spectrum. One shiqq. Or this can also mean that these disbelievers, they are in shiqaq amongst themselves. They are in dissension amongst themselves. Some amongst them are calling Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sahir, magician. And others call him majnoon, madman. They themselves are not united in their stance. In Surah Al-Hashr also, verse number 14, the disbelieving people have been described as تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. You think that they're together, but their hearts are diverse, split apart. So, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, they turn away from what they shouldn't turn away from in pride and because of discord. And this is something that has always been the case. Those who disbelieve have been in opposition to the Messenger of Allah, no matter who he was. And as a result of this shiqaq, they are not only preventing themselves from the way of Allah, but also preventing other people. So real izzah, real honor, praiseworthy honor, is in accepting the Qur'an as divine revelation and accepting the messenger as a person chosen by Allah to receive wahi and to guide people. But shaitan deceives people, and they start thinking that if we start believing in the Qur'an, then we will be debased, we're going to become lowly, we will lose leadership, we will lose izzah. So here Allah mentions, Kam ahlakna min qablihim min qarn. How many a generation have we destroyed before them? So kam is used two ways. One is in the meaning of question, so meaning how many. Or kam can also mean many, many. Kam ahlakna, how many a generation? As a question, meaning how many, or many, many a generation. And qarn actually means a century. Figuratively, it's used for a generation of people. Kam ahlakna min qablihim min qarn. How many a generation have we destroyed because of their disbelief and their izzah, the blameworthy kind, and shiqaq before them, meaning before alladhina kafaru, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Surah Al-Hajj, we learn in verse number 45, فَكَأَيٍّ مِّن قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا وَهِيَ ظَالِمَةٌ. And how many a city did we destroy while it was committing wrong? فَهِيَ خَاوِيَةٌ عَلَى عُرُوشِهَا. So it is now fallen into ruin. وَبِئْرٍ مُعَطَّلَةٍ. And how many an abandoned well. وَقَصْرٍ مَشِيدٍ. And how many a lofty palace. In Surah Al-Anbiya verse 11 we learn وَكَمْ قَصَمْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ كَانَتْ ظَالِمَةٍ. And how many a city which was unjust have we shattered. وَأَنْشَأْنَا بَعْدَهَا قَوْمًا آخَرِينَ. And produced after it another people. And the one who destroyed the people before, the wrongdoing people, can also destroy wrongdoing people of all times, of the present and the future. But yes, their adab of the previous people was sent for them directly from Allah, and the adab of these people, meaning the people at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was at the hands of the believers through different kinds of battles that took place between the believers and the disbelievers. This was a form of punishment from Allah through the hands of the believers. In Surah At-Tawbah we learn in verse number 14, قَاتِلُوهُمْ يُعَذِّبُهُمُ اللَّهُ بِأَيْدِيكُمْ وَيُخْزِهِمْ وَيَنْصُرْكُمْ عَلَيْهِمْ وَيَشْفِي صُدُورَ قَوْمٍ مُؤْمِنِينَ. Fight them, Allah will punish them by your hands, and will disgrace them and give you victory over them, and satisfy the breasts of a believing people. So here Allah mentions how many a generation have we destroyed before them. فَنَادَوْا. And they, meaning the people before in the past, then called out. وَلَا تَحِينَ مَنَاصٍ. But it was not a time for escape. The term فَنَادَوْا from the term nida, which is used for a loud calling. So this term نَادَوْا is فِعْل مُتَعَدِّي. It requires an object. So this means they call out to Allah, or they call out to each other. When the adhab comes, they call out for relief. They also call out claiming belief. In Surah Ghafir verse 84 we learn فَلَمَّا رَأَوْا بَأْسَنَا قَالُوا آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ. And when they saw our punishment, they said, we believe in Allah wahda, alone. وَكَفَرْنَا بِمَا كُنَّا بِهِ مُشْرِكِينَ. And disbelieve in that which we used to associate with Him. This is what is meant by فَنَادَوْا. Then also in Surah Al-Anbiya we learn in verse 12 فَلَمَّا أَحَسُّوا بَأْسَنَا إِذَا هُمْ مِنْهَا يَرْكُضُونَ. And when its inhabitants perceived our punishment, at once they fled from it. In Surah Al-Mu'minun verses 64 and 65 we learn حَتَّى إِذَا أَخَذْنَا مُتْرَفِيهِمْ بِالْعَذَابِ إِذَا هُمْ يَجْأَرُونَ. Until when we seize their affluent ones with punishment, at once they are crying to Allah for help. لَا تَجْأَرُوا الْيَوْمِ. Do not cry out today. إِنَّكُمْ مِنَّا لَا تُنصَرُونَ. Indeed, by us you will not be helped. فَنَادَوْا. And they then called out, meaning the past nations, the previous people. When they were punished, they then called out. وَلَا تَحِينَ مَنَاصٍ. But it was not a time for escape. Now this term la ta is in the meaning of la, which is a word of negation. And then this ta that is attached, suffixed, is extra, za'id, for mubalagha. Just like in the term allama, which is used for someone who's very knowledgeable. Not just knowledgeable, very knowledgeable. There is a ta that is attached at the end. It is not for feminine gender. It is for mubalagha. So this term la ta is like laysa, which is also a word used for negation. So wala tahina manas, but it was not at all, no longer, a time for escape. The term manas from noon waw sad. Naus means to run away, to escape from the enemy. So this can be actually understood in the meaning of masdar, manas, meaning escaping, or as ism zarf, time or place of escape. So there was no time left for their escaping. They called for help, but the situation was such that there could be no escape, no deliverance. Because after the coming of the adhab, one's iman cannot benefit him. It's too late. So they called out at a time when calling out for relief was of no use. They called out for relief, but they couldn't escape the punishment. But still, the disbelievers amongst the people of Makkah have not taken heed from previous examples. And instead, they continue to deny the messenger sent for their guidance. They try to hurt him, calling him Majnoon, Sahir, Kadhab, Sha'ir, Kahin, and every wasf, every description that people dislike. So this verse is actually a means of comfort for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also a warning for the deniers, informing them that they cannot cause any harm to the truth through their denial, just like the people before them couldn't cause any harm to the truth at their time. So many communities were destroyed before for their denial. Many messengers were denied. And Allah is all-powerful to take revenge for His righteous servants. In Surah Fussilat, we learn in verse 15, فَأَمَّا عَادٌ فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ وَقَالُوا مَنْ أَشَدُّ مِنَّا قُوَّةً أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ الَّذِي خَلَقَهُمْ هُوَ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُمْ قُوَّةً وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يَجْحَدُونَ. As for Ad, they were arrogant upon the earth without right, and said, who is greater than us in strength? Did they not consider that Allah who created them was greater than them in strength? But they were rejecting our signs. وَعَجِبُوا أَنْ جَاءَهُمْ مُنذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ. And they wonder that there has come to them a warner from among themselves. The term ajibu from Ain Jim Ba, ajaba means to wonder, to be amazed. So they were surprised, they were astonished. Now, there are two reasons for amazement or ta'ajjub. One is out of inkar. It's kind of like a denial. You know, sometimes when you receive some news from someone and you tell them, because you're so astonished, no way, that's not true. Okay, this is kind of ta'ajjub is of inkar. Okay. But then there's another kind of ta'ajjub which is of istihsan, to find something to be actually impressive. You're actually impressed. So here, this ta'ajjub is of inkar, of denial. وَعَجِبُوا أَنْ جَاءَهُمْ مُنذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ. And they wonder that there has come to them a warner, a messenger appointed by Allah, referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was both mundir and mubashir. Mundir alone is mentioned here, because that was his role towards the disbelievers in particular. And is also specified here, minhum, from among themselves. So in the general sense, he was a human being that they could relate to. And also in terms of lineage, he was from amongst them, from the Quraysh. Despite this, they disbelieved in him. They knew him as Sadiq and Amin before prophethood. And then afterwards, he became for them Kadhib and Kahin. So really their opposition was not against him because of who he was. Their opposition was because of what he brought, the message he brought. وَقَالَ الْكَافِرُونَ هَذَا سَاحِرٌ كَذَّابٌ. And the disbelievers say, which disbelievers? The ones who are in this amazement, this ta'ajjub of inkar. The disbelievers say, this is a magician and a liar. هَذَا سَاحِرٌ كَذَّابٌ. So they ascribed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with two evil attributes. One of sihr and the other of kadhib. A sahir, a magician, tries to negatively impact the minds of people. And a liar informs of what contradicts the reality. Both are vices. They're not virtues. So why would they choose these two descriptions? He's a magician and a liar. Why do you think? Exactly. What he said was having an impact. People's, mindsets were changing. Their hearts were being reformed. Their likes and dislikes were changing. So this ability, this tawfiq that may be granted to someone to positively impact people, their hearts and their minds, that's a good thing. But the hasideen, the jealous people, the mukhalifeen, the ones who are in intense opposition, take all of this negatively. And they spread negative propaganda. And they say, oh no, these people are being brainwashed by so-and-so. You hear these kinds of things nowadays also. Somebody starts learning the Qur'an, comes closer to the deen, right? Takes impact from the message of the Qur'an. And that message may be delivered through a person who's teaching the Qur'an, right? And this person is now taking positive impact, is bringing positive change in his or her life. But the hasideen, the mukhalifeen will say, no, this person is being brainwashed by so-and-so. Okay? So yes, the people would be positively impacted by the recitation of this book. So yes, this book has a profound impact. Always has, always will. A profound impact on the hearts and the minds of people. And so, people at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hasideen, the mukhalifeen, they would say when they found, sometimes their own family members being impacted by the message of the Qur'an, they would say, oh, they've become enchanted, they're bewitched. And then they also objected, أَجَعَلَ الْآلِهَةَ إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا? Has he made the gods only one God? Again, this istifham is of ta'ajjub, expressing amazement. Which kind of ta'ajjub? For inkar. And this term, ja'ala, is again fi'l muta'addi. It requires an object. So one object here is aliha. And the second, ilahan wahida. So has he made the gods only one God? Because he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to the people, say that there is no ilah worthy of worship besides Allah. Say la ilaha illallah. But these people were worshipping multiple gods like Lat and Uzza and Manat and Hubal. And for them, saying that these Lat, Uzza, Manat, etc., were not gods was very strange, very surprising for them. And according to them, this was of the greatest of lies, that these are not gods. They couldn't understand how the entire heavens and the earth could be managed by one creator. And this was due to their jahl, ignorance. According to them, since there is so much variety in takhliq, there must be also variety in terms of creators of that takhliq. But what do people who have this kind of thought process ignore completely? The perfect harmony that there is in the universe, the functioning of the universe as we know it, even though there is so much variety in the takhliq. So they say, has he made the gods only one God? Inna hadha la shay'un ujab. Indeed, this is a curious thing. This is something strange. Again, ujab from the root letters? Ain Jim Ba. Ujab is actually more profound than ajib. The term ajib is used for something that's found to be what? Strange or different. Ajib, wondrous. But ujab kind of means weird, strange, so unique. So in other words, through this statement, inna hadha la shay'un ujab, they're saying this is so strange, this idea of believing there's only one God, not multiple gods. There is nothing stranger than this claim of oneness of God. وَانْطَلَقَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْهُمْ أَنِ امْشُوا. And the eminent among them, again, the people of Makkah are being referred to, the eminent among them went forth saying, continue, وَاصْبِرُوا عَلَىٰ آلِهَتِكُمْ, and be patient over the defense of your gods. إِنَّ هَذَا لَشَيْءٌ يُرَادٌ. Indeed, this, meaning what this messenger is bringing, this message of Tawheed, is a thing intended, planned. So here the Mala are mentioned, the Ashraf, the Kubara, the notable people in the society, like Abu Jahl. And these were the people who were very fierce in their opposition towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَانْطَلَقَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْهُمْ, and the eminent among them went forth. The term inṭalaqa from the root letters, ta, lam, qaf. Talq means to untie or undo. Inṭalaqa is to leave and to go away, to proceed after pausing. So every time they met, the Mala met, this is what they discussed amongst themselves. They encouraged each other to remain immersed in batil, falsehood, shirk, and to be patient in terms of defending it. So what would they say? Animshu. Continue. Imshu from mim sheen ya. And mashi means to walk. So what this means is, mashi ala tariqah. Go on worshipping this way of, worshipping multiple gods. Stick to that way of worship. Go on worshipping the idols. Or mashi bil qadam. So meaning, don't stay here listening to this messenger talking about Tawheed. Leave. Move on. Don't stay. Because once these notable people in the society at that time of Makkah came to meet Abu Talib. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also there. And he invited these people towards Tawheed. But they actually got up and walked out. This is mashi bil qadam. They didn't want to even listen to what he had to say. So the eminent among them went forth saying, continue and be patient. Umshu, continue, meaning go on worshipping the idols. That's your tariqah, stick to it. Or mashi bil qadam, don't listen to this man who's talking about Tawheed, leave, move on. وَاصْبِرُوا عَلَىٰ آلِهَتِكُمْ, and be patient over the defense of your gods. Stand up for your gods. Hold yourselves firmly to their worship. And اصبروا from Saad Ba'ra. Sabr is habsun nafs, self-control. And sabara, when it comes with ala, like it does here, isbiru ala alihatikum, it means to persevere. It has the meaning of istiqamah, to bind yourself to something. Be patient over the defense of your gods. Inna hadha la shay'un yurad. Indeed, this, meaning this message of Tawheed that is being promoted by this messenger, is a thing intended. Yurad from irada. And yurad is fi'l majhul, passive form, right? To show the enormity of what is intended. Irada means intention. So it is a thing, yurad meaning planned, designed, intended, aimed at. So there are two ways to understand this. Inna hadha la shay'un yurad. Number one, the one who is promoting this message of Tawheed really means it. He's not playing around. And this is an evidence of the truthfulness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the one who means what he's saying proves it. Right? Or another way this can be understood is what they're claiming through this statement, Inna hadha la shay'un yurad, is that this message of Tawheed that is being promoted is designed for some selfish motive. It's all planned. This Tawheed to which this messenger is inviting you is something planned and designed so that he, this messenger, can gain power over you. He wishes to end your leadership and become the leader. Now, what are some of the lessons we learn here? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam invited people towards Tawheed uluhiyyah. which is accepting and acknowledging that only Allah is divine. Other beings have no divinity in them. So he's inviting the people towards Tawheed Uluhiyya, while these people that he's inviting towards Tawheed Uluhiyya believed in Tawheed Rububiyyah. They believed in the Lordship of Allah. Okay? Because we learn also in Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 61, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَسَخَّرَ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ فَأَنَّى يُؤْفَكُونَ. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth and subjected the sun and the moon, they would surely say, Allah. Then how are they deluded? So yes, they have some level of recognition of Tawheed Rububiyyah. They know Allah is Rabb, meaning Khaliq, Malik, Mudabbir. The issue is they don't accept Tawheed Uluhiyyah. They set up co-equals with Allah. They think other beings also have divinity. Then also, we learn here that in da'wah ilallah, one should begin with what is most important. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam began with the message of La ilaha illallah. Salah, zakah, hijab, etc. These were not matters addressed right at the beginning of the da'wah. Then also we learn here that when a person genuinely means what he's saying, then what he's saying has a profound impact on people. So yes, a person speaks from the tongue, using the tongue. And if what is on the tongue of a person is directly coming from the person's heart, then what is being said, when it goes to the ears of the people who are listening, then it will also reach their hearts. Okay? So yes, people at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were afraid of the irada, the determination of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, him saying what he actually meant. They were scared of it. Because they would actually come away thinking he really means what he's saying. This is no joke. He really genuinely believes in it, meaning he believes in this tawheed. It's not a laughing matter. He genuinely believes in this. And if he's speaking in a way that, he's actually genuine in what he's communicating about, it's going to have an impact. So before it has an impact, let's leave. Let's not listen. Sometimes when people get a chance to sit in front of other human beings who are very, very well-wishing for them. Could be parents, it could be teachers, right? And these well-wishers know these individuals quite well. And these individuals are now sitting in the capacity of having committed many mistakes, performed many sins. And they're sitting in front of their well-wishers, getting some advice from them. So if they have too much guilt and too much resentment, as soon as these well-wishers of theirs start telling them, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you should be mindful of, don't do this, don't do that, then these people who are kind of like, too guilt-ridden, they don't want to change themselves, they would rather just get up and leave. They're like, yes, I know you're well-wishing for me, I like you, you like me, but I'm not sitting around to hear this anymore. Don't lecture me. This approach of don't lecture me basically means that, I know I need to change in like a lot of ways, but I don't feel like it right now. I know what you're saying makes sense. I know you're right. I know I'm wrong. And what you're saying is going to have an impact on me because you're genuine. What you're saying to me makes total sense. It's coming from the heart. I know it. Otherwise, why would you take this time to say all this? Why would you sit me down and explain all of this to me for hours sometimes? But you know what? I don't want to accept it, so I have no time. I'm not sitting through this. Then these people, the ones who are described here, they continue encouraging one another to remain firm on what is batil. ما سمعنا بهذا في الملة الآخرة. We have not heard of this tawheed in the latest religion, meaning the previous religion. Now what does this mean? One way to understand this is that they're saying we have not heard in the religion of our forefathers anything like this Tawheed Uluhiyya, to which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is inviting us. We've always been worshipping gods, multiple gods. And this is again reflective of the same statement, أَجَعَلَ الْآلِهَةَ إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا إِنَّ هَذَا لَشَيْءٌ عُجَابٌ. Another way to understand this is that they're saying we have not heard of this in the religion of these later days, meaning we haven't heard of this Tawheed in the religion of these later days, meaning Christianity, because that was the latest religion before Islam. And if this Tawheed Uluhiyya was true, the Christians would have told us about it. And because these Christians actually believe in Trinity, and that's not Tawheed, so this is something too strange. So this also teaches us, even the mushrikeen of Makkah, of Arabia, didn't consider the Nasara, the Christians, to be muwahideen. Even they knew this. Okay? So they said, we have not heard of this Tawheed in the latest religion. In hada illa ikhtilaqu. This Tawheed is not but a fabrication. Now this term ikhtilaqu is from the root letters kha, lam, qaf. Khalq means to create something. And ikhtilaqu is to fabricate, to make up something. So ikhtilaq is used for such a statement that has some reality to it, but falsehood and lies are also mixed into it. So it's a concoction, you could say. And again, this is further emphasizing their statement, وَقَالَ الْكَافِرُونَ هَذَا سَاحِرٌ كَذَّابٌ. So when they denied Tawheed, they also denied Risala. And that's why you will find in Makki surahs both these concepts, the concept of Tawheed and also Risala, are highlighted again and again. These people, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, when they denied Tawheed, they also denied Risala. So they said, أَأُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ الذِّكْرُ مِن بَيْنِنَا. Has the message been revealed to him out of all of us? Al-dhikr here referring to what? The Qur'an. Has the message, meaning the Qur'an, been revealed to him out of all of us? Was he the only person left to be chosen for al-dhikr? As if they were amazed, how could the Qur'an be revealed upon him while all of us are still here? It didn't come to one of us. Why is this relatively young man chosen? In Surah Az-Zukhruf, we learn in verse 31, وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ عَلَىٰ رَجُلٍ مِّنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. And they said, why was this Qur'an not sent down upon a great man from one of the two cities, Makkah or Ta'if? In Surah Al-Qamar, verse 25, we learn, أَأُلْقِيَ الذِّكْرُ عَلَيْهِ مِن بَيْنِنَا بَلْ هُوَ كَذَّابٌ أَشِرٌ. Has the message been sent down upon him from among us? Rather, he is an insolent liar. So they wanted that the Qur'an should have been revealed upon a great, noble, famous man amongst them. One from amongst the Mala, the Akabir, the Ashraf. But the fact of the matter is that even if that was to be the case, they wouldn't have accepted the message. They have an issue with the message, not the bringer of the message necessarily. In Surah Al-An'am also we learn in verses 8 and 9, وَقَالُوا لَوْ أُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ. And they say, why was there not sent down to him an angel? وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَا مَلَكًا لَقُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. But if we had sent down an angel, the matter would have been decided. ثُمَّ لَا يُنظَرُونَ. Then they would not be reprieved. وَلَوْ جَعَلْنَاهُ مَلَكًا. And if we had made him an angel, we would have made him appear as a man. And we would have covered them with that in which they cover themselves. So they would say, that why isn't some angel coming along with him to support his message, to defend him like a bodyguard? So the response is that if an angel was sent down, the matter would have been concluded. They wouldn't be given any respite anymore. They would be punished. The angel would bring punishment for them. And then, if this messenger was actually an angel, he would come in the human form. And then they would be just like confused about this matter. But no, the human messenger has been selected to bring guidance to human beings. But the people who are in denial, they oppose the truth. They're too arrogant to accept and submit. And they said, he's not noble enough to be receiving this message. Which is actually a lie. Because they themselves described him as Sadiq and Amin. And we learn in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 124, Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalatah. Allah is most knowing of where He places His message. Bal hum fi shakkim min dhikri. Rather, they are in doubt about my message. Dhikri here again referring to Qur'an, my revelation. They have not believed in it. And so they're raising these objections. Because if they had believed in it, then they would have no problems with the bringer of the message. And the reason behind their shak is their bias. So Allah says, negating their claim that the one selected for this dhikr, this Qur'an, should have been the noblest person amongst them. Bal hum fi shakkim min dhikri. Rather, they are in doubt about my message. Bal lamma yaduqu adab. Rather, they have not yet tasted my punishment. And here this term lamma is a combination of lam and ma. Lam in the meaning of not, and ma is zaid. Adding emphasis, it's extra. Bal lamma yaduqu adab. Rather, they have not yet tasted my punishment. And this term adab was actually adabi. The ya has been abbreviated, hence you see the kasra under the ba. So adabi meaning my punishment. Soon they will taste this punishment. And if they had tasted the punishment, they would not have disbelieved this way. But when they do taste this punishment, they will try to believe, but it will be of no benefit then. In Surah Ghafir, verses 84 and 85, we learn, فَلَمَّا رَأَوْا بَأْسَنَا قَالُوا آمَنَّا بِاللَّهِ وَحْدَهُ وَكَفَرْنَا بِمَا كُنَّا بِهِ مُشْرِكِينَ فَلَمْ يَكُ يَنْفَعُهُمْ إِيمَانُهُمْ لَمَّا رَأَوْا بَأْسَنَا. So the deniers of the messengers have no dalil for their denial, except just the ways of their ancestors that they're blindly following. When they claim that, oh, we've never heard of this tawheed before in the religion of our ancestors. Also, we learn here that the law of Allah is not subject to or under in any way our desires. We have to submit. We have to accept the law of Allah. أَمْ عِنْدَهُمْ خَزَائِنُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ. Or do they have the depositories of the mercy of your Lord? Are they objecting on this basis? And خَزَائِنُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ, the depositories or the treasuries of the mercy of your Lord, meaning such as nubuwwah, prophethood, or rizq, sustenance. أَمْ عِنْدَهُمْ خَزَائِنُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ الْعَزِيزِ الْوَهَّابِ. Or do they have the depositories of the mercy of your Lord, the exalted in might, the powerful, the ghalib, the one who does what He wants? Al-Wahhab, the bestower. Wahhab from wahaba. Wahaba means to gift something. So Wahhab is very generous giver, the one who gives profusely. And the term Wahhab is used for gifting or donating without expecting return. And it's also not a payback. So do they have the treasuries of the rahmah of Allah so that they might give it to whomever they want? Allah has to somehow take their permission as to what is to be given to whom. So basically these people are in reality objecting to the decisions of Allah when they reject the messenger selected by Allah. In Surah Az-Zukhruf, verse 32, we learn, أَهُمْ يَقْسِمُونَ رَحْمَةَ رَبِّكَ نَحْنُ قَسَمْنَا بَيْنَهُمْ مَعِيشَتَهُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Do they distribute the mercy of your Lord? It is we who have apportioned among them their livelihood in the life of this world. وَرَفَعْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ دَرَجَاتٍ, and have raised some of them above others in degrees of rank. So because Allah is Al-Khaliq and also Malik, He is also Hakim, no one should have any objection when it comes to His decisions and His commands. And if you think about it, if we look at our own lives, what are some of the objections that we have? What do we object towards? What kinds of things? When do we like to object? Something we don't like doesn't sit well with us. It goes against our will, right? We end up saying things like, well, this shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have been like this. So at the time of any difficulty, what is the attitude of people in general terms? They don't accept the situation right away. They object. Similarly, not being pleased with Allah's division of provision is also included in this. So the moment you start feeling about any particular situation that no, this shouldn't have happened, this is not right, or you start saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? Right? Keep in mind that this might be in a certain way distancing you from Allah, this mindset. Okay? And when we look at other people's lives, sometimes we raise objections. This person didn't really, study so much, but this person's so rich, right? This person might not even be so religious, but they're receiving such good marriage proposals. And here I am. I don't receive any. This is not right. Her, husband takes her to the masjid, takes her for umrah, and mine. This is not right. And then we don't stop there, right? Many times. We build on top of this all kinds of stories also. We harbor a lot of negativity, a lot of hatred. And then we become suspicious towards innocent people. We don't know people's real stories, their backgrounds, how hard they might have been working in certain other aspects of their lives, what their tests might be. And we just raise objection. Not only does this take away the peace of our hearts, it also ruins our relationships. It also distances us from Allah. It's very problematic. Then also, an average person doesn't object that much compared to those who have been blessed with a lot. You may have noticed this also. Those who are highly educated, those who are given a lot of wealth, generally speaking, raise many more objections because they tend to become very entitled and arrogant. This is the reason why these ashraf from the people of Makkah objected to the nubuwwah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is he chosen, not us? The simple answer to that is, why not? It's Allah's decision to not choose you and to choose him. So whenever we start, developing this mindset, why me? I'm in this situation where I'm deprived of this and deprived of that. Also ask yourself the question, why not you? What makes you so, privileged or whatever it might be, that you should be saved from this particular deprivation, whereas you know that there are multiple people in this dunya facing all kinds of deprivations much greater than yours. And keep in mind, the owner of any object has authority over what he owns, right? So when you own something, it could be a pen, it's yours, you bought it. Now you have it in your possession, you can choose to gift it to whomever you want. And if somebody tells you, no, why did you give your pen to somebody else? You'll be like, it's mine. What's your problem? I own it. I didn't give your pen, it's mine. Sometimes you might not say it, but you think it. So when Allah decides something with his full wisdom, full authority, full ownership, which is absolute, over everything that He has created, including us. There are 4 possible reactions. There could be more. One reaction is that people become upset when Allah decides something. This is not allowed. Another possible reaction is that some people are patient. This is the minimal requirement. Some people are patient and grateful. Why grateful? Because they realize this difficulty could have been greater. And then there's another level also, a reaction. Being patient, being grateful, and pleased with Allah's decree. Thinking there must be some goodness in this. My Rabb is not unjust. And keep in mind, the one who is pleased with Allah, Allah is pleased with him. The one who is displeased with Allah, Allah is displeased with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, there is no Muslim who says in the morning and evening, رَضِيتُ بِاللَّهِ رَبًّا وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا وَبِمُحَمَّدٍ نَبِيًّا sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that he will have a promise from Allah to make him pleased on the day of resurrection. Allah will please that person. So the next time any kind of resentment towards anything that's happening builds up within you, say رَضِيتُ بِاللَّهِ رَبًّا. Force yourself into saying it. Then Allah mentions, أَمْ لَهُمْ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا, or is theirs the dominion of the skies and the earth and what is between them? These great claims that the people of Makkah are making, is it because they have great treasuries and their rule, their authority on this earth and also in the skies is like supreme? If they claim that they're so great, then what should they do to prove their greatness? فَلْيَرْتَقُوا فِي الْأَسْبَابِ, then let them ascend through any ways of access. فَلْيَرْتَقُوا from رَقَافِيَا. Raqiya means number 1, to blow or dust off. Hence ruqya from the same root letters means incantation, when one recites and blows. And then the second meaning of raqiya means to climb. Second meaning of raqiya is to climb, to ascend, according to one's ability. And also gently. The term taraqqi is used for advancement, progress. To go up step by step steadily. So taraqqi is used in the meaning of advancement or progress or progression, step by step, in a steady fashion. So فَلْيَرْتَقُوا فِي الْأَسْبَابِ, let them ascend. If such is the case, they have full authority in the sky and also on the earth, then why are they here under the heat of the sun and the rainfall? Let them ascend to the sky. Go to the throne. And this amr, this command is of tawbih, reproach. Let them ascend through any ways of access. Asbab, plural of sabab. Sabab is basically used for a rope with which one goes up a tree. And then it's used for anything that is a means for accessing something else. So let them use any means taking them up to the skies, and then let them bring down some wahi upon themselves and assign it exclusively to whomever they please, themselves or someone that they consider to be notable enough for receiving revelation. جُنْدٌ مَّا هُنَالِكَ مَهْزُومٌ مِّنَ الْأَحْزَابِ, they are but soldiers who will be defeated there among the companies. جُنْدٌ مَّا, ma is zaid, extra for ta'keed, of taqleel, of tahqir. So it is said, أَكَلْتُ شَيْءٍ مَّا, I ate very little. The ma is added to emphasize the taqleel, the littleness. Okay. So jundum ma, meaning hum jundum ma, they are nothing but a despicable group who will be defeated, mahzoom, and destroyed. So the term mahzoom from ha zai mim. Hazama yahzimu It means to put someone to flight. Hazima means defeat. And mahzoom is one defeated, maf'ul. They are but soldiers who will be defeated there, right there, not even in the skies, in the dunya here on earth. Min al-ahzab, among the companies of disbelievers, who were against their prophets at their time. Now this is referring to the great leaders of the Quraysh being killed at the Battle of Badr, because it was this group that was heavily opposing the messenger. As was described, وَانْطَلَقَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْهُمْ. They didn't even want to listen to him. They would walk out. So, they're nothing in the sight of Allah and they will soon be defeated. This is the message communicated here. In Surah Al-Qamar also we learn in verses 44 to 46, أَمْ يَقُولُونَ نَحْنُ جَمِيعٌ مُنْتَصِرٌ سَيُهْزَمُ الْجَمْعُ وَيُوَلُّونَ الدُّبُرَ بَلِ السَّاعَةُ مَوْعِدُهُمْ وَالسَّاعَةُ أَدْهَى وَأَمَرُّ. Or do they say we are an assembly supporting each other? Their assembly will be defeated and they will turn their backs in retreat. But the hour is their appointment for due punishment, and the hour is more disastrous and more bitter. So this is also reassurance for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, that don't worry, the way the ahzab of the previous nations were defeated, in the same way those who are opposing you will be defeated. They will see their outcome in this world, and a greater punishment awaits them in the hereafter. And then the detailed explanation of the ahzab is given next. كَذَّبَتْ قَبْلَهُمْ قَوْمُ نُوحٍ وَعَادٌ وَفِرْعَوْنُ ذُو الْأَوْتَادِ. The people of Nuh denied before them, and the tribe of Ad and Fir'aun, the owner of stakes. ذُو الْأَوْتَادِ, أوتاد plural of watad, from wawtadal. Watad is a pole or a peg, a piece of wood or metal fixed in the ground to pitch up a tent. And the term watid actually is used for a nail or a peg which has a part of it in the ground and a part of it out of the ground. And watada, it basically means to drive in a peg, to fix in a peg or a nail. Mountains are called awtadul ard, pegs of the earth, because they hold the crust of the earth in a stable position. Now, this description, Dhul Awtad, this is actually the laqab of Fir'aun, owner of stakes. And there are some reasons given for this. Number one, this is how he used to crucify people, by putting nails into their hands and feet. Hence his laqab is Dhul Awtad, the owner of pegs, which pegs that he would gore into the hands and the feet of people by way of crucifying them. Or another reason that's given is that great armies would actually pitch up their tents using pegs that they would gore into the ground when they would travel. And Fir'aun had large armies. When he would travel with them, this is what they would do: pitch up their tents using pegs that they would gore into the ground. Hence the laqab, Dhul Awtad. A third way to understand this, which is a figurative meaning, is that this description, Dhul Awtad, for Fir'aun, it means he is Dhul Mulk al-Thabit. He's a possessor of kingdom which is well established and rasikh. Because think about it, these people, the people of Fir'aun, built gigantic buildings which still stand, the pyramids. In Surah Al-Fajr also verses 10 to 12 we learn, وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ الَّذِينَ طَغَوْا فِي الْبِلَادِ فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهَا الْفَسَادِ. So here there is mention of the people of Nuh, the tribe of Ad and Fir'aun. In Surah Al-Qamar verse 9 we learn, كَذَّبَتْ قَبْلَهُمْ قَوْمُ نُوحٍ فَكَذَّبُوا عَبَدَنَا وَقَالُوا مَجْنُونُ وَازْدُجِرْ. The people of Nuh denied before them, and they denied our servant and said, a madman, and he was repelled. In Surah Al-Haqqah verse 6 we learn, وَأَمَّا عَادٌ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِرِيحٍ صَرْصَرٍ عَاتِيَةٍ. And as for Ad, they were destroyed by a screaming violent wind. وَثَمُودَ, and the tribe of Thamud, وَقَوْمُ لُوطٍ, and the people of Lut, وَأَصْحَابُ الْأَيْكَةِ, and the companions of the Aikah, the thicket, the people of Shu'aib alayhi salam. They lived in a region full of trees and forests. In Surah Al-Haqqah, verse 5, we learn فَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِالطَّاغِيَةِ. So as for Thamud, they were destroyed by the overpowering blast. In Surah Al-Qamar, verses 33 and 34, we learn كَذَّبَتْ قَوْمُ لُوطٍ بِالنُّذُرِ إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ حَاصِبًا إِلَّا آلَ لُوطٍ نَجَّيْنَاهُمْ بِسَحَرٍ. The people of Lut denied the warning. Indeed, we sent upon them a storm of stones. Except the family of Lut, we saved them before dawn. In Surah Ash-Shu'ara, verse 189, we learn فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَأَخَذَهُمْ عَذَابُ يَوْمِ الظُّلَّةِ فأخذهم عذاب يوم الظلة إنه كان عذاب يوم عظيم. And they denied him, so the punishment of the day of the black cloud seized them. Indeed, it was the punishment of a terrible day. And here Allah mentions أولئك الأحزاب. Those are the companies. Those were the people who were disbelieving and opposing the messengers. إن كل إلا كذب الرسل فحق عقاب. Each of them, meaning each of the Ahzab, they had the same problem. They denied the messengers. كذب الرسل. Those who were sent to them, and also all other messengers as well. Because denying one messenger is denying all of them. Since all of the messengers invite towards Tawheed. فحق عقاب. So my penalty was justified. فحق, fa meaning because of their takdeeb, they had to face iqab. Takdeeb brings iqab, even if that iqab doesn't come straight away. The term iqab from ayn qaf ba, from aqib, which is the back part of the foot, below the ankle, the heel. So the reason for their destruction was their disbelief in the messengers. So let those who are being addressed here beware. وَمَا يَنْظُرُ هَؤُلَاءِ إِلَّا صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً. And these disbelievers await not but one blast. مَا لَهَا مِنْ فَوَاقٍ. For it there will be no delay. The term يَنْظُرُ from نَظَرَ. نَظَرَ is used for looking and also for waiting. Here it's in the meaning of waiting. And صَيْحَةً وَاحِدَةً meaning نَفْقَةُ الْقِيَامَةِ, blowing in the trumpet by Israfil alayhi salam, that will begin the punishment. مَا لَهَا مِنْ فَوَاقٍ. For it, meaning for this صيحة, there will be no delay. The term فواق from fa waw qaf. And this has been read two ways, فواق or فواق, with the same meaning. فواق means lapse. It's actually used for the time between two milkings or two sucklings. Okay? So basically the gap between the pulling and the releasing of the udder for milk, which is basically only as long as it takes to take a breath. So the space of time between the opening and the closing of the hand, if it is that a person is milking an animal, that much time, that lapse. It's a slight pause. And also this term fuaq is used for the gasping of a dying person. So when it comes to milking an animal, sometimes after milking, like a cow, people will bring the calf, the baby. And when the baby starts to take the milk from the udders, they pull it away. And then they start milking again because the milk starts coming, right? So this slight pausing is fuaq, to lapse. Then also the term fawaq, it's used in the meaning of deferment. Deferment. The term faqal marid is used for when the sick person recovers. Ifaqa means recovery. So then in that sense, fawaq would mean istiraha, time to rest. So ma laha min fawaq. For it, meaning for the sayha, there will be no deferment. No time to relax and rest. No gap. No break. It'll be the same pitch, continuous, without a break. Sometimes you hear certain sirens or horns, and there's like a breakage It's like, like a high and low frequency. Even for police cars, you will find that the sirens are in a way that there is a high and low frequency. But this sound of sayhatan wahida will be one continuous sound. And there will be no one in the heavens or on earth but will be terrified as a result of hearing it, except those whom Allah spares. وَقَالُوا رَبَّنَا عَجِّل لَّنَا قِطَّنَا قَبْلَ يَوْمِ الْحِسَابِ. And they say mockingly, the Quraysh, the disbelievers, they say, our Lord, hasten for us our share of the punishment before the day of account. It would seem as if, they're asking for something good, like some share of wealth or some land, that it should come quickly. The term qittana from qaf ta ta, qaf ta ta, and qitta is used for the portion of something, to cut something off widthwise, horizontally. Qid, with the dal, it means to cut lengthwise, vertically. So they say, our Lord, hasten for us our share of the punishment before the day of hisab. And the term qitta, it's also used for a piece of document, like like an account book. Like how people will keep like a tab, like at the cafeteria, for example. They'll take something and they'll say, put it on my tab. What is that tab? It's like an account book. That's qitta. So these ashraf amongst the people of Makkah, the elite, the disbelievers, were saying to Allah to rush their audit. That's what they're saying. And to show it to them before the day of judgment, so they can see what they owe and how they're doing. And this they were doing, of course, by way of mockery. So which qitta are they asking for of punishment in the dunya? Or record of deeds? Give it to us in our hands now. We want to see how we're doing. Or qitta meaning share of reward. They're assuming that they're going to be rewarded. So qitta here can be understood three ways. One, in the meaning of punishment in the dunya. Like we learn in Surah Al-Ma'arij, سَأَلَ سَائِلٌ بِعَذَابٍ وَاقِعٍ. A supplicant asks for a punishment bound to happen. Or in Surah Al-Anfal, verse 32, and remember when they said, oh Allah, if this should be the truth from you, فَأَمْطِرْ عَلَيْنَا حِجَارَةً مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ, then rain down upon us stones from the sky, or bring us a painful punishment. That's one meaning of qitta, punishment in dunya. Number two, record of deeds. And number three, share of reward. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to deal with such an obstinate group of people. But what is he told to do? We'll see in the next few verses. Let's listen to the recitation of these first 16 verses.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صاد والقرآن ذي الذكر بل الذين كفروا في عزة وشقاق كم أهلكنا من قبلهم من قرن فنادوا ولا تحين مناص وعجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم وقال الكافرون هذا ساحر كذاب أجعل الآلهة إلها واحدا إن هذا لشيء عجاب وانطلق الملأ منهم أن امشوا واصبروا على آلهتكم إن هذا لشيء يراد ما سمعنا بهذا في الملة الآخرة إن هذا إلا اختلاق أأنزل عليه الذكر من بيننا بل هم في شك من ذكري بل لما يذوقوا عذاب أم عندهم خزائن رحمة ربك العزيز الوهاب أم لهم ملك ملك السماوات والأرض وما بينهما فليرتقوا في الأسباب جند ما هنالك مهزوم من الأحزاب كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح وعاد وفرعون ذو الأوتاد وثمود وقوم لوط وأصحاب الأيكة أولئك الأحزاب إن كل إلا كذب الرسل فحق عقاب وما ينظر هؤلاء إلا صيحة واحدة ما لها من فواق وقالوا ربنا عجل لنا قطنا قبل يوم الحساب.
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is told, "Isbir ala ma yaqulun." Be patient over what they say, their mockery, their taunts, their demands, their objections, their mockery of the punishment. Remain patient. And as an example, Allah tells him to think about the story of Dawood. وَاذْكُرْ عَبْدَنَا دَاوُودَ ذَا الْأَيْدِ. And remember our servant Dawood, the possessor of strength. Think about the gifts that were given to him, which in turn makes him reflect on the gifts that Allah bestowed on him, so as to not think so much about what the disbelievers are saying and doing. وَاذْكُرْ from dhikr. Dhikr means to remember. So remember this and also inform the believers, in the meaning of ikhbar, give them news. Make mention of this. Be patient over what they say and remember our servant to yourself and also make mention of him to the believers. That if he committed a slight error, he immediately repented. Now what do they think, these people? What do they think they're doing by disobeying Allah over and over again without any repentance? To keep the example of Dawood in front. Who was he? Dhal Aid, the possessor of strength. The term Aid here is not the plural of Yad. Yad means hand, right? Rather, it is coming here as a masdar from Hamza Ya Dal. Ayyada yu'ayyidu ta'yid. It means to support or to strengthen. So Aidun, it means quwwah, strength. So Dawood alayhi salam is described as Dhal Aid, possessor of strength. How so? Number one, he had physical strength. Iron would be like soft dough in his hands, and he would mold it whichever way he wanted. Alanna lahul hadid. Then also he had the strength to control himself and remain firm in obedience to Allah. He used to fast every other day throughout his life. He was a king. He had access to the finest foods, yet he fasted. This exhibits what? A great amount of self-control. He also had a lot of control over his sleep. He would stand in prayer for a third of the night. He would also recite the Zabur, and the mountains and the birds would repeat praises of Allah, joining him in praising Allah. And also he had authority and great influence, political strength also. So he was a king, but he managed his time in the best way. One day, actually, he kept for the people and the management of their affairs. One day for his family. One day for worship. This also requires a lot of sabr. That you leave everything to one side and seclude yourself for some time just worshiping Allah. And especially when you're a king, you have so many kinds of blessings accessible to you. People around you who want to be with you. And then you leave all of that to the side and focus on worship. So the example of Dawood alayhi salam is one of the best examples of sabr in a very holistic sense. Innahu awwab, indeed he was one who repeatedly turned back to Allah. Awwab from Hamza wa ba. Aba means to return. So awwab is when an aqil being intentionally returns to something repeatedly. An animate being intentionally returns to something repeatedly. This is when the term awwab is used. So in the meaning of oft returning, ever obedient, because awb basically means to return, right? So awwab on the structure of fa'al, when it's used for a living being, it means the one that intentionally, willingly, repeatedly returns. So returning to Allah in terms of aqwal, statements, and also harakat, movements. Shaykh al-Sa'di, he explains this characteristic to mean, the characteristic of awwab, to mean the one who constantly returns to Allah with hope, fear, and love. And turning to Allah with regards to matters of this worldly life and the hereafter. It is to call upon Allah for all of your needs, to remember Him and to repent to Him whenever you fall into error. And here we will notice that Allah describes Dawood alayhi salam, Sulaiman alayhi salam, Ayyub alayhi salam, three of the prophets who were actually tested greatly with these traits, showing their status with Allah and their complete reliance and love for Him. Their complete reliance upon Him and love for Him. And we learn from this that tests and trials should bring us closer to Allah and should make us from amongst the awwab. So here Allah mentions, إِنَّا سَخَّرْنَا الْجِبَالَ مَعَهُ يُسَبِّحْنَ بِالْعَشِيِّ وَالْإِشْرَاقِ. Indeed, we subjected the mountains to praise with Him, exalting Allah in the late afternoon and after sunrise. The term سَخَّرْنَا from Sin Kha Ra. Taskhir means to bring something to submission. The term Jibal, plural of Jabal. And here, the term Jibal is being used for mountains, and this is Jama' Mukassar, hence the feminine gender being used. So indeed, we subjected the mountains to praise along with Him, meaning along with Dawood, doing tasbih along with Him, exalting Allah, yusabbihn. The noon here in yusabbihn for feminine. The root is Sin Baha from tasbih. And there are two types of tasbih. One is of qawl and hal, meaning of statements and also state. And am, which is general, all creation does this. And then there is khas tasbih, which some people do. So this tasbih, yusabbihn, this is khas tasbih. Because the mountains perform tasbih in a specific form along with Dawood alayhi salam. It's a special tasbih. So we subjected the mountains to praise with Him, exalting Allah bil ashi, in the late afternoon. Ashi from Ain Shinya. Ashi is used for the time between zawal of the sun till fajr. So the evening and the night included. Or the time before sunset, but the evening time. Wal ishraq, and after sunrise. Ishraq from Shin Ra Qaf. Sharaqa means rising and shining of the sun. Shuruq is the zuhur, the time the sun comes out. And ishraq, rising, or the rising of the sun fully, irtifa'. It's used for the time when the sun has fully risen, with its light extending everywhere. In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 79, we learn, وَسَخَّرْنَا مَعَ دَاوُودَ الْجِبَالَ يُسَبِّحْنَا وَالطَّيْرَ وَكُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ. And we subjected the mountains to exalt us along with Dawood and also the birds, and we were doing that. And here Allah mentions, وَالطَّيْرَ مَحْشُورَةً, and the birds were assembled. So this is actually connected with Jibal. Wow, atf over here connecting at-tayr with what is mentioned about al-jibal. The birds were assembled. Mahshura from ha, shin, ra. Hashr means to gather from different places to one place. So they were mustered up in flocks, gathered before Him from all places. Min kulli janib. Kullun lahu awwab. All glorifying with Him. Each of the mountains and birds. All with Him repeating praises. Now, This can be understood two ways. One is that the mountains and the birds were awwab to Dawood, meaning obedient to him, doing tasbih along with him repeatedly. Or kullun, meaning all birds were mahshura, morning and evening. Gathered morning and evening. And for this they had to be what? Awwab, responsive, repeatedly. So Dawood alayhi salam repeatedly turned back to Allah, so Allah caused the birds to obey him and follow him. So when you turn to Allah, you go out in His way. Sometimes you don't find so much time to even consciously sit down to make dua for yourself. Allah appoints His creation to make dua for you. The fish in the water, the ants on the earth, even the angels make dua for the one who is leaving his home in talaba for ilm, to a majlis of learning. The person who is obedient to Allah, Allah causes the rest of the creation to become obedient to Him. وَشَدَدْنَا مُلْكَهُ وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحِكْمَةَ وَفَصْلَ الْخِطَابِ. And we strengthened his kingdom and gave him wisdom and discernment in speech, decision-making power. Shadadana from Shin Dal Dal, from Tashdid, which means emphasis, highlighting, stressing something. Shidda is intensity. We strengthened his kingdom. We reinforced it with guards and hosts, huge armies. And also we gave him al-hikmah, ataynahu al-hikmah. We gave him wisdom. He was able to make the right decision at the right time. And also this means he was granted prophethood and knowledge and correctness in all matters. So he was granted sawab in qawl and amal, correctness in speech and action. And fasl al-khitab, discernment in speech. Fasl from fa, sad, lam. Fasala means to separate. Fasl means distinction. And khitab from ha, ta, ba. Khitab is a speech that is mainly one-sided. It's an address. So, وَآتَيْنَاهُ فَصْلَ الْخِطَابِ, we gave him decisive speech. Which means what? Number one, he would yafsilu between people. Those who did khitab to him, those who brought their disputes to him, he would resolve their disputes. Yafsilu, he would decide between them. And also he was granted the ability to formulate a clear statement for a decision on an issue. Or another way this can be understood is that his own khitab, his own address was fasl, clear, assertive. So he was dhu bayan wa fasaha. His kalam was wadih. He spoke clearly and distinctively. So his khitab, his own speech, was clear, bayyin. And through this he would actually decide between people, decide between truth and falsehood. And this is the reason why the kingdom of Dawood alayhi salam was so strong, because he possessed these two qualities that Allah granted him, al-hikmah and fasl al-khitab. We learn that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said the recitation of scripture was made easy for Dawood. He would order that his mount be saddled, and he would finish his recitation before they were saddled. He would never eat but from the work of his own hands. So Allah gave Dawood alayhi salam a lot of mental strength, decisive speech, and so he was tested in this regard. And so here's an example that is given of Dawood alayhi salam's judgment. So yes, prophets were saved from major sins and indecencies, but they were human beings. So there were certain mild errors in a minor capacity committed on their part to show that they were humans. And also to open up that avenue of them then doing istighfar and turning towards Allah repentantly, doing tawbah, which elevated their ranks even more. Because istighfar draws a person closer to Allah. So yes, the prophets were also corrected by Allah. And this tells us that only Allah is perfect. Divinity is only for Allah. So what are we taught through this? When we make mistakes, even though we try not to, whenever we recognize a mistake, we need to promptly, swiftly turn towards Allah. Mistakes actually keep us humble. And this is important for us. So what was Dawood alayhi salam's test? وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ نَبَأُ الْخَصْمِ? And has there come to you, you meaning O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or O Mukhatab, the one addressed, the news of the adversaries, their khabar, their qissa? And hal is used for istifham, when a question is posed. But it also arouses interest, makes a person curious. It is said that there are two types of hal. One is positive, like here for tashwiq, arousing interest, as is mentioned also in Surah Saf, verse 10, Hal adullukum ala tijara, oh, you who believe, shall I guide you to a transaction that will save you from a painful punishment? And then there is hal, which is of fear. Like, Hal ataka hadithul ghashiyah, Surah Al-Ghashiyah. Has there reached you the report of the overwhelming event? Now here, this hal is for the purpose of interrogation, to provoke curiosity. Tashwiq, to just, create within a person desire to learn and find out. So it is kind of for ta'ajjub also, tashwiq, ila istima', so that a person wants to hear, arouses interest. Has there come to you the news of the adversaries? Naba'ul khasm. Khasm is one who disputes, from Saad, mim. And it's used in the singular and plural because it's a mufrad word. In the context, it is plural. So it's referring to two adversaries. The judgment of Dawood alayhi salam concerning them. So two over here wouldn't mean two individuals, but two groups. Because tasawwaru is plural. If tasawwarul mihrab, when they climbed over the wall of his prayer chamber. Whose prayer chamber? Dawood alayhi salam's. The term tasawwaru from sin wawra. Sur means protective wall that is built around a building for protection, or a city for protection. It's a big wall. And sara means to leap over, meaning to leap over a wall or a barrier. And also it can mean to raise a wall. So tasawwaru or tasawwara as a fi'l, it means to jump over the wall. So which wall is this? The wall that was around the mihrab, the prayer niche or the prayer place of Dawood alayhi salam. So as we learned earlier also, Dawood alayhi salam had allocated his time, right? His days. One day for the people, one day for the family, one day for his worship. So he was alone in his place of worship on his day of worship. And for the purpose of concentration, he had locked the door so no one could enter and disturb him. But these two disputants brought their dispute to him. They found the door locked. So they decided to do what? Climb over the wall in order to gain access to Dawood alayhi salam. Many times those who are in desperate need of something, they become blind. They don't see what they're doing. Whether they're doing what is right, whether they're doing what is wrong. So Dawood alayhi salam was busy in his worship. He didn't expect anyone to come. So naturally, he was startled by these two adversaries. And what happens in these kinds of situations? Your ability to decide about a matter becomes compromised. You're caught like at a weak moment, right? So he had all the right at this time to tell these disputants to leave. But he did not show the slightest signs of anger. Imagine you're studying in your room, which is known for the place and the time even when you're supposed to be studying. The time is known and the place is also known. And then your sibling barges in, or somebody else barges in. So you become startled, right? Now, in this story, we learn of Dawood alayhi salam's great patience. He had so many blessings, yet no pride. He was startled, but he didn't lash out. إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَى دَاوُودَ فَفَزِعَ مِنْهُمْ. When they entered, the disputants entered upon Dawood all of a sudden while he was praying in the mihrab, and he was alarmed by them. فَفَزِعَ from fazai, ayn. Faza' means alarm, dismay, fear, panic. And he was afraid because they were a jama'ah and he was alone. And they had used which methodology to access him? Climbing over a wall, not entering through a door. And usually people who enter through this kind of mechanism of scaling a wall don't come with very good intentions. قالوا, they said, لا تخف, fear not. خصمان بغى بعضنا على بعض. We are two adversaries, meaning نحن طائفتان خصمان. We are two adversaries, two disputing groups, one of whom has wronged the other. Bagha from baghain, yeah. Bagha literally means to desire, and when one tries to get what one desires, one just wants to cross all limits in pursuit of the desire. Baghya means to exceed the proper limit in desire of something. So they said, فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَنَا بِالْحَقِّ. So judge between us with truth, وَلَا تُشْتِطَ, and do not exceed it. تُشْتِطَ from sheen ta ta. Shatat means to go very far, beyond limits. So don't exceed it, meaning don't go beyond the limit. They're seeking a judgment from him, but they're saying something to him which is not really very appropriate. It's kind of disrespectful. It's not appropriate to say something like this to a prophet. The judge between us, but you better be just. Because when you go to someone seeking their judgment, you're also kind of believing that they will be just. That's why you're going. And Dawood alayhi salam was a messenger of Allah who feared Allah greatly. And imagine the disputants are saying, judge with truth, don't be unjust. Don't cross limits. Don't go to extremes. So what they're implying through shatata is, don't lie, don't do ghulu, don't exaggerate in lying. Now even upon hearing this, he didn't get angry. Instantly telling them, hold your tongues. How dare you talk to me this way? First of all, you're invading my privacy. And then you're speaking this way. Although Dawood alayhi salam had a great amount of physical strength as well. But look at his internal mental strength. He didn't lash out. And this quality of tolerance when it comes to dealing with people cannot come without focus in worship. Train yourself in terms of being focused in your ibadah, and you'll be able to handle all kinds of people also. Dawood alayhi salam is able to handle these disputants so well because he spends the entire day doing what? On a regular basis? Worshipping Allah with a lot of concentration. And they say, وَهْدِنَا إِلَى سَوَاءِ الصِّرَاطِ, and guide us to the sound path. Meaning what we should do about this matter, the solution to our problem. Sawa means equal. What is straight? What is correct? Meaning guide us towards the best course of action. It is said that these two khasman were actually, one opinion is that these were two individuals only. And they were in reality two angels who had come to Dawood alayhi salam at the command of Allah to indirectly teach Dawood alayhi salam a lesson. However, connected to this opinion, there is an Israeli tradition which has no reality to it. Okay? A story in which there is mention of a prophet of Allah, in this case Dawood alayhi salam, falling in love. It's not appropriate. It's something that doesn't sound right. That he had multiple wives and then he wanted to marry another woman. And so he had some inclination towards her. And because of this, he did something by way of, making the husband of this woman that he wanted to marry go out for battle so that he could eventually, because of his death, marry the woman. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever that this would be something that a prophet would do. Okay? And a story in which, a prophet of Allah is like falling in love with a woman is just not right. Okay, and then doing something by way of, intervening or, getting this woman. This doesn't sound right. And the reality seems to be here that the disputants mentioned here were human beings. Because if they were angels, then this would have been mentioned in the Qur'an, right? Because all stories are narrated in the clearest way, because there is ibrah in them. So people do not misunderstand or become confused. So this incident is as Allah has mentioned it, without any mention of angels or a man with a beautiful woman that maybe Dawood alayhi salam wanted to marry. None of this is mentioned. Okay. So these two disputants, wallahu a'lam who they were. They came, they intruded upon the privacy of Dawood alayhi salam. He was startled, but he didn't rebuke them. They told him, judge between us with truth and don't exceed, and guide us to the sound path. Inna hadha akhi lahu tis'un wa tis'una na'jah. Indeed, this, my brother, has 99 female sheep. Waliya na'jatun wahidah, and I have one female sheep. So one of them, the plaintiff, he said, my brother has 99 female sheep. Akhi from ukhuwa, which means brotherhood. And this could be ukhuwa fid din, so meaning my fellow companion, brother in religion, has 99 female sheep. وَهِيَ وَلِيَ نَعْجَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ, and I have only one female sheep. And this shows that the disputants were actually poor people. Okay. فَقَالَ أَكْفِلْنِيهَا. So he said, meaning the akhi, the owner of 99 female sheep, he said, entrust her, this one she-camel that you have, to me. أَكْفِلْنِيهَا. Ha referring to the na'jah, the one female sheep. Give me that one sheep that you have, make it part of my flock. I'll become the owner of it. That's what he's saying. And akfilniha from kafalam. Kafala means to be a guardian. Wa'azzani fil khitab, and he overpowered me in speech. Azzani from ayn zai. Azza ya'izzu means to overpower, to have the upper hand. So he overcame me, he defeated me in argument, so I gave up. Now, in this verse, there is no reference to whether the other party confirmed or objected at what the first party said. The accused one is silent. And the one who is accusing should present a dalil, right? For what he's accusing the other party of. And if this had happened, it would have been mentioned in the story. So, technically, Dawood alayhi salam should have heard what? Both sides of the story. But when he heard the poor one's story, one person with one, one disputant group with one she-camel, he looked at this as, injustice, that he should be told that he should give his one to the one who already has so many, 99. So he became displeased. He immediately passed the judgment in favor of the one who only has one she-camel. Qala, so he said, meaning Dawood alayhi salam said, لَقَدْ ظَلَمَكَ بِسُؤَالِ نَعْجَدِكَ إِلَى نَعَاجِهِ. He, meaning the one with 99 she-camels, female sheep, he has certainly wronged you in demanding your female sheep, in addition to his female sheep. Because he's already been blessed with so many sheep. Yet he's forcing the poor one, who only has one sheep, to give that one sheep. وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْخُلَطَاءِ لَيَبْغِي بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. And indeed many associates oppress one another. The term al-khulata from lam ta, khalata means to mix one thing into another. So khulata is the plural of khaliyat. Khaliyat means associate, comrade, companion. And khaliyat is basically the one who shares in a particular matter, like a business or some work. Khulata are those who have partnership. And so khaliyat is a partial shareholder in something. So here Allah mentions, indeed many associates oppress one another. Many shareholders oppress one another. Many people sharing a single classroom wrong one another. Many people sharing one roof end up wronging one another. Many people sharing the same Wi-Fi password end up wronging one another. Many people sharing the same account, bank account, end up wronging one another. Many people sharing the same parking lot end up wronging one another. You can think of many examples. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except for those who believe with their hearts and do righteous deeds with their jawarih, their limbs. وَقَلِيلٌ مَّا هُمْ, and few are they who don't oppress others. So we have the qalil and the kathir. Kathir oppress others, and qalil don't oppress others. And the qalil who don't oppress others are described as those who believe and do righteous deeds. So the believer who performs righteous deeds does not commit injustices because of his iman and amalun salih. وَظَنَّ دَاوُودُ أَنَّمَا فَتَنَّاهُ, and Dawood became certain that we had tried him, put him on trial. ظَنَّ from nun. Zan means supposition or certainty if it is followed by anna or inna. So Dawood became certain that we had tried him. We tested him through hukumah, governance, in order to see. Dawood alayhi salam was appointed to judge between the affairs of people. And so his responsibility was something that should have made him available for all people. And him secluding himself for worship in a certain place was kind of like going against that responsibility. Okay? Or this means that he was tested so that he would understand that it's not right to hear just one side of the story and not hear the other side and then pass judgment. Okay? فَاسْتَغْفَرَ رَبَّهُ وَخَرَّ رَاكِعًا وَأَنَابَ. So upon realizing his mistake, he asked forgiveness of his Lord and fell down bowing in prostration and turning in repentance to Allah, because he was awwab. The term raki'an from raka fa'in, one who does ruku'. Ruku' here in the meaning of musallin, praying. And kharra from kharara. Kharir is the sound of flowing water or the sound of wind. Khurur means to fall down while making this kind of particular sound. Okay, swift sound. So he asked forgiveness of his Lord and fell down bowing in prostration and turned in repentance. Anab from nun waw ba. Naub is used for a case or an opportunity or a turn. So inaba means to turn from time to time. And we also learn from this that tests come all of a sudden, without signs. We're unpredictable. Sometimes you make a promise to yourself that I'm not going to be angry, and then what happens? The same day you make that commitment, something happens and you become angry. You're put in a situation where you forget that promise. Soon as you realize that, but I made a promise that I wouldn't get angry, what should you do? What has been described here? Seek Allah's forgiveness. Bow down, submit, turn in repentance to Allah. This is what Dawood alayhi salam did. He turned towards Allah without blaming the disputants. That, I ended up giving this decision without hearing the other party. I decided in favor of one party because, I was frazzled. Blaming the disputants? No. He immediately submits. Also, it is said that this test, وَظَنَّ دَاوُودُ أَنَّمَا فَتَنَّاهُ, has to do with his haste in making the decision. Okay, so he accepted that. He didn't say, no, but I was surprised. That's why I was quick in making the decision. This is how the loyal slaves of Allah are. When someone points to them their mistake, they don't become arrogant. They make amends. So here Allah mentions, فَغَفَرْنَا لَهُ ذَلِكَ. So we forgave him that, the mistake he made. He was not held responsible for it. وَإِنَّ لَهُ عِنْدَنَا لَزُلْفَى وَحُسْنَ مَآبٍ. And indeed for him, besides maghfirah, is nearness to us and a good place of return. Zulfa from Zaid Lamfa. Azlafa means to bring close, and Zulfa is position of closeness. For him is nearness to us. He will have good deeds by virtue of which he will be brought close to Allah. وَحُسْنَ مَآب, and a good place of return. Ma'ab from Hamza waw ba. So ma'ab in the context, place of return. Marji', meaning in the hereafter, Jannah. So Allah forgave him for his error, removed the athar, the effect of the error, and on top of that rewarded him with two great things: his nearness and husna ma'ab. So every person is tested. And those tests are a means to determine whether a person will draw closer to Allah or not. He will have husna ma'ab or not. And after this, Dawood alayhi salam's rank was exalted even more than before, but only after he was tested. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. We said, "O Dawood, indeed we have made you a successor upon the earth. We have given you this honor and responsibility to deliver Allah's message." And successor, Khalifa, doesn't mean successor for Allah in the sense that he would come and do what Allah does. Na'udhu billah. Khalifa here means one with responsibility given to him by Allah. فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِالْحَقِّ. So judge between the people in truth. And hukum with haqq means with justice. Haqq in hukum is adal. وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَىٰ, and do not follow in decision making your own desire. Hawa from hawawiya. Generally, hawa is used for base desires, which if you end up fulfilling without checks and balances, you fall, meaning in the sight of Allah, in your rank. And it's not that this was something that was going to be expected, that he would fall for his desires and not judge between the people in truth. But this is mentioned to show the importance of this matter. Okay? That indeed we have made you a successor upon the earth, so judge between the people in truth because that's important. And don't follow your own desire because that's also important. فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, as it will lead you astray. Meaning if it is that you don't judge between the people in truth, you follow your desires, you will be led astray. You will be led astray from the way of Allah. Meaning this following of desires will lead you astray, will mislead you from the way of Allah. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَضِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Indeed, those who go astray from the way of Allah, لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ, will have a severe punishment. بِمَا نَسُوا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ, for having forgotten the day of account. Nasu from Nun Siniya. So we learn here about the obligation of judging between people with truth and fairness. A leader should be very careful when he judges between people. He should decide in truth and not let his desires come in the way. And also, it is not right for a person that when he is given a responsibility, that he turns away from it. And also, following the desire is a means of straying from the way of Allah. When a person follows his desire in a matter once, then it becomes easier for him to follow his desires the second time and the third time, and so on and so forth. And of the causes of straying from the way of Allah is following the desire and forgetting the day of hisab. It's all connected. Getting too lost in this dunya until a person forgets what he was created for, what the purpose of his creation was. Okay, so inshallah we will stop here for today. Inshallah, when we resume tomorrow, we will go back to some of these last few verses. In particular, the story of Dawood alayhi salam, okay, where his incident is mentioned from verse number 21 onwards. Okay, inshallah, and then we'll continue from there. All right, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد